Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AIM on MS&T podcast. I'm your host, Kate, and I'm so glad you have joined us today. If you are new here, let's catch you up. AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the sectors that form the foundation of the modeling, simulation, and training community right here in Central Florida. Together, they make up what is known as Team Orlando, a collaborative partnership driving innovation and mission readiness through MS&T. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and innovators within the MS&T world to talk about what's new, what's next, and why it matters, especially to our Team Orlando community. Whether you're deep in the field or just curious about one of Orlando's biggest industries, second only to the theme parks and hospitality industry, we're here to keep you informed, inspired, and part of the conversation. Looking to boost your visibility ahead of major industry events or just get your company's name out there? Team Orlando News just launched its 2026 Spring Advertising Special. Get bonus exposure with packages that include spotlight features, podcast ad reads, and newsletter placements. But hurry, offers are only available for packages purchased by June 1st. Email advertising@teamorlando.org to learn more and secure your spot today. Today, our guest is Robert Katz, CEO and Executive Director of World Innovation Network. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get started. Can you please tell our audience a bit about yourself and walk us through your career journey to where you are now?
Wow, walk you through. I think I'll have to run you through so that we can get, because it's been a wild ride. But I am a space nut from, ironically, the very beginning of when we first went to the moon, and here we are. Today we kind of went back.
Yeah, that's true.
We waved at it, which is pretty close and pretty cool. So what an amazing time to be alive. I mean, just incredible. I mean, so space is what inspired me on this trajectory to explore the world that we live in. And here we are. It's coming true.
Yeah.
All because of you guys here. So I am so happy to be here and so honored and privileged to be in the hot seat. But it's really an honor to be with you guys. So thank you so much for having me, Mary. You're a wonderful team. Thank you.
Of course. You've had such a wide-ranging career. What's been the most common thread connecting all your roles? Was there a moment where you had to take a big risk or a pivot?
Yeah, like every day. So the common thread connecting is just that word that you said. So we're going to fast forward to, because that's what it's all about. It's all about connecting.
Yeah.
So everything that you didn't realize when you're studying, you certainly don't realize when you're definitely in high school. And most people, unfortunately, exit college and still don't see the connectivity between what they're doing one day to the next. I mean, we go to school, think about it, you're fast forward in high school, 8 subjects, they're all, the bell rings, you go to the next one, bell rings, you go to the next one. College, oh, you're in this major, that major, sometimes different schools, sometimes different campuses. We are kind of indoctrinated to over-specialize.
Yeah.
There's a place for that, but you lose the connectivity in how everything that we're doing, just like all of us as people, all of us as community, it's all one community, and how all these disciplines really interconnect. That's usually lost, unfortunately, because of the race that over-specialize. You can see it like with our body, like, oh, that's the respiratory system, or that's the cardiac system, or that's well, wait a minute, like, it's our body, like, it's all interconnected. You never actually get that picture, and you see people have to go to like multiple specialists just to get the big picture if they ever do. So I think we have the ability to change that, though. But so that's been the common thread, is the interconnectivity. But within space, that's because space is already connected to everything. I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought everything was cool. It wasn't until retrospectively I saw how everything was interconnecting.
Now, looking back on your career, which position pushed you the most, and what did you take away from that experience?
What position pushed me the most? I mean, it was really one of my first positions. So it was supposed to be a summer job while I was working on my PhD in the this weird field. Like people say, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's dumb. That's stupid. And I go, but it's like, seems cool. It seems interesting. No, it's like all washed out. Like that's defunct now. So I was working on my PhD in something called artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. So it was defunct. It was silly. It was stupid, but it was intriguing to me. So I took a summer job at MIT to work on radars and satellites and things like that. And then from there, got an opportunity to work at the Pentagon, working on for Ronald Reagan on the Star Wars program, the STAR program. And that pushed me a lot because I was an engineer. I was systems engineer, mathematician, computer science, a bunch of majors and minors in school, but they were all super geeky. And there I was at the White House being briefed by the CIA on a threat from the Russians. And, none of that threat talked about fast Fourier transforms or equations or all of that. It just talked about staying alive. So how do we transfer that requirements that we had to stay alive or to think to defeat them, but defeat them without firing a shot? That was a trick. So how did we do that? So that was what stretched me the most. It really turned out to be, that was a big pivot, to realize that it's not about the technology, it's about what the technology allows you to do from a non-technological standpoint.
Can you expand on AI and your experience on it?
Sure. So wasn't as much experience as I wanted because, as I said, I was studying on my PhD on AI for space. We were doing the autonomous navigation of the Mars rover. So the Mars rover, as you know, is so far away that you can't control it remotely, because if you say, oh, I can see that there's a crater there that's a cliff, and by the time that signal gets to you, and if you try to steer it in real time, it's going to go over the cliff because it takes so long for that communication signal to come all the way from Mars. So you have to give it a certain level of autonomy to be able to self-navigate. And so that was a combination of what we used to call computer vision, and we used to call it generally robotics, anything that was movement-oriented. Then people say, oh, that's silly, like that's stupid, like all this AI stuff is stupid. And then we also used AI at Goddard. I used it at NASA to look and analyze satellite images. These satellite images, crazily enough, I look back, was what we now call climate change. Back then, we didn't even call it climate change. It was, before climate change, we used to call it global warming, and that was a cool term until we realized that it gets really cold, so it's not so good. Before that, it was deforestation was the big thing. So we used AI models to measure deforestation more exactly than we normally thought we could. Problem was, to run those models, it took 6 Cray computers like a couple days to run just a simple picture. It didn't go anywhere. Like we had to put it all aside because it really wasn't practical. Fast forward to today, we're using all those same models. Like it's whatever is old is new again, just like my bell bottoms or something, or my seersucker suit, right? And it all comes back. So we're using the same models. They're actually not matching the basic. It's the compute that is, because now you can run these models faster, these same models faster. That is, but why do we have those? Why like how come the compute got so much better? Did it get better to run those models? Why? Anybody know? Anybody of our listeners at home, in our studio audience, anybody in our studio audience know why it got so much better? I'll give you a hand. Look at who's the leading. Now this was even before they were on the scene so big. But who's the biggest AI chip maker, hardware maker to run those models? NVIDIA, right? It's one of them. Where did they come from? The gaming industry. So we talk about cross sectors helping each other, right? So the gaming industry, because I'm okay as a scientist if I have to wait a couple hours, days, weeks to get my data, or I'll use other machines or whatever. But if you're a gamer, like you want it immediately, like, you have to have it fast. So the gaming industry is what really supported and helped the AI industry blossom. And actually the modeling and simulation industry as well as a whole. Like you got a lot of the roots of what you do, the algorithms that, because you're modeling, that modeling came from games. Here we are at Disney, right?
Yeah.
So again, but if nobody stopped to think about how all these sectors could work together, we wouldn't have all these benefits. So now that we have compute, but we saw this coming. Like now AI is getting smarter and smarter. And I remember when people used to say, oh, but it's okay because now it, like when computers first came out, oh, now it relieves you to free up your time to do higher level tasks. Well, news alert, shocker, like that's not the way people work. Like that's the way some people work.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that I get space out there as an inspiration and motivator for people to stop looking down at their phone, at their screen, and look up at the skies and the stars and expand their horizons and opportunities, not at their screen. So we by looking at all these cross sectors and how they interact, getting back to AI and your question, we thought we would be able to, everything that comes out, that we would be able to, like a calculator, oh, well, it frees you up to do higher level tasks. It doesn't. We just get lazy. We just get lazy. Okay, we have cars. We don't have to walk places. So does that mean we're still exercising more? No. Like, we still maintaining our shape? No. We outsourced our mobility to cars, right? We outsourced all of the skills. We're outsourcing our thinking to AI.
Yeah.
And we're going to, just like anything you don't use, you lose. We saw the cognitive atrophy maybe as well, already coming. I mean, I kind of sounded the alert on this sort of cognitive decline, what I called. So if you think of all of the tools we've ever had that we've always built, up until a certain point, have always help us be better, faster, stronger people, right? So we got spears, so now we could catch, kill animals, and we didn't have to farm. That allowed us to be more mobile. We didn't have to stay where our crops were. We could start to explore and hunt as we go. Allowed us to defend our territory and protect our families. Tools allowed us to look up at the stars. Tools allowed us to, then we had books, allowed us to communicate, and then to get the sharing of ideas and thoughts and knowledge. And then we had radio and TV, allowed us to communicate more widely and to even entertain. And then they've always helped us, and then books. But our tools have always helped us grow as a society of people. But now, and even connect better. Car, we can go meet, go to gatherings and all that. But now I've noticed a couple of years ago how our tools are making us go the opposite way. And I call it not evolution, which is what normally happens when you have better tools, but our tools lately, because I'm not blaming the tools, but the way we use them is we're experiencing de-evolution. Because our tools are when we outsource our knowledge and our brain and our thinking, our cognitive abilities, then we don't step up.
Yeah.
We need to step up. We need to take control of technology so it doesn't control us. And with AI, it is a great opportunity for people to be more creative, right? And this again is the time for the rise, not the rise of the nerds, but the rise of the non-STEMers, right? Because now we can have more creativity because a lot of the traditional STEM things can now be automated. And I just hope that looking forward that we rise to the challenge and to the opportunity to bring everybody to the table, to bring all the creative people, the STEM, the STEAM, the arts, the music, the dancing, everybody together, and not just have a ability to connect the dots, but instead, as I mentioned, to connect the thoughts. And that's what AI can give us the ability to do, but it's up to us to rise to that challenge.
With all the diverse roles you've held over your career, how did you first get involved in the modeling, simulation, and training industry? What drew you to it?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. What drew me to it was Neil and Mary. And I'm only half joking. That's why I'm here in Orlando.
Okay.
Because of this strong community.
Yeah.
I said, well, I thought you were a space person. But I realized that you could do space anywhere. This is not actually the strongest space state by far. Matter of fact, we're among the lowest we're the lowest per capita. We're the lowest of a state of our size. If you look at like in New Mexico, 2-3 national labs. It has AFRL, has FFRDCs. It has really significant prowess, and they're like the size of like a decent suburb of Miami or something like that. I mean, just really killing it. But the potential, because of the modeling and simulation community that's here, is so strong. That is a gem. Like it doesn't exist anywhere else. And that has the ability to take space. Space is, I would like to think, special and unique because of its relationship with simulation. If you think of all the other things we're simulating, flying airplanes or doing medical procedures, weather, simulation is amazing. It is great. It saves, it lets us do things faster, better, stronger, but it's a benefit, but you could it's not life or death. You can actually do some of that stuff without simulation. Like you can learn to fly a plane and never go into simulator, right? But space is so dangerous. It's such an adverse environment. It's so complex. So if you think about, you look out in the sky, I mean, we're launching tens of thousands of Starlinks out. There's actually constellations that are being proposed. There are millions of satellites. That's on top of the millions we already have that are floating around in all these crazy environments out there, which we only can experience and we only can understand the implications of what happens if we do this or that or that or this through modeling and simulation. So for a space environment, it is a necessity. It is a requirement. It is a requisite. So as I always like to say, space is your best customer and the modeling and simulation community. And in the flip side, modeling and simulation is our biggest need. And that's what drew me here, as you said. Yeah. So space is really not a sector. It's not really its own sector. It is a super sector of all the other sectors that support it synergize together. Because in space, you need to understand cyber, you need to understand software, you need to understand storage, you need to understand solar energy, you need to understand systems, you need to understand infrastructure, you need to understand even cells if you're sending people to space. So you have all these other sectors which are part of space. And the only way you can fully understand, therefore, space is by understanding how all those other sectors work together, interact together. First of all, how they interact on their own, and then how they interact with each other. But who does that? Like, no one does that, because we just said we're all over super specialized. Well,
right.
That's where you guys come in, because when you're modeling this system of systems, then you can fully understand how they interact with each other. And we're not even talking about just technical systems, but how they understand the other S's are society, sociology, cerebral, right? How do people interact with technology?
Yeah.
And again, these are so complex that it only can be done in the modeling and simulation domain.
As we see a convergence of technologies and innovations in the MS&T industry, can you share what our visionaries see coming together to shape and solidify the modeling and simulation and training industry for the future? What innovations and technologies do you believe will make the biggest impact here?
That's a great question. I think the biggest impact is not going to be by technology. I think the biggest impact is going to be by people. So I'm a big people power proponent.
Yeah.
I think that by, for example, you guys invited me here because I'm not a sim person, I'm a space person, and you having the people cross pollinating within different communities, different groups, different sectors, different societies. I think that that's where the magic is going to happen and starts to happen. When we understand, and it helps, certainly that's the key to innovation. Innovation never happens by doing something the way you've always done it. It's by definition doing something different. And if you're always tapping on the same people, they're never going to be able to have that game-changing innovation.
Right.
Like space example, of course, like Elon Musk was not a rocket manufacturer. Like he wasn't, and he didn't come, that's not where he came from. But because the the standard rocket manufacturers, and God love them, I'm not saying anything against them, but they're living in a certain world. Like we said, they're over specializing because their job is to be super experts on what they do this way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we are indoctrinated to do, is to become like drill down, become super experts. But then we lose that glue that connects us. I mean, unfortunately, that's what's happening in our society as well. That people are, diving deep in their own little rabbit holes of news or information or thoughts or whatever, and we're losing that interconnection as a society. And so similarly, we lose that interconnection from systems that we have to model. And I think that by the people reaching out to other communities and cross-pollinating and then connecting those dots, then that's where the biggest game-changing innovation lies.
Switching it up now, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, there is a section that talks about the innovation of S's of success. Please tell us about that.
Well, you know, I'm an S freak. You just got a sample of some of them. But I like to have fun. Number one. And two, it's a show me, don't tell me when I talk about, because you can see how things are connected both visually, sensorily, auditorially, and then in implementation. So really everything I do is to try to connect the communities, but whether it's on a micro level, whether you're looking at a system. So when I was building systems for space, we'd be looking at other spacecraft, we'd be looking at alternative ways of doing things. And then from a people perspective as well, it is about diversity. I mean, that's really, it's diversity of approach, which is different. Sometimes the people can look different but think the same. Like that doesn't help. Like you want different thinkers, like different kind of thinkers.
Right.
I mean, you look at how we all started in the aviation business, right? It wasn't the traditional people from what was back then the military industrial complex or the car manufacturers said, let's take a car and make it fly. It was bicycle people. They came in kind of from the outside. If you remember the desktop wars, right? Who was going to win? Was it going to be Apple or Microsoft or Sun or Linux? And who was going to control your world? It turned out to be none of them.
Yeah.
Like everybody was thinking traditional. No one was thinking about, and so Google comes in from kind of like from nowhere, because everybody was just over specialized thinking about how we can make the desktop better. And it turns out the winner wasn't even a desktop at all.
Yeah.
So it really, that's what we have to do. We have to kind of think outside the box.
Now, as you become more involved in the Space Coast, what opportunities do you see emerging in that ecosystem?
Well, that is ginormous, but I call it the Launch Coast. So far, that's what we do there is launch.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate comments, but it's definitely not by far the biggest area for space development, space innovation, space R&D, space manufacturing, and not even for a coast. Like, look at Long Beach. Like Long Beach has, vast. Look what Texas is doing, and then of course the centers of Colorado and New Mexico, and a shout out to Washington State. So, all of these satellites, 99% of the satellites that are launched here, built in Washington State. Nearly all the engines that go off here are built in Huntsville. Now, thanks to Blue, we have some rockets finally be built in here, but until then, 0 rockets were ever built here. But the potential, like what your question is asking, is ginormous. And that's, again, comes back to you guys. Like because you have so many of the critical elements that space needs. And then here in Florida, we have amazing, here we are on the university campus, sort of. It's a partnership of university campus. So we have amazing universities, and not just amazing universities in and of themselves, but that are so eager and willing to solve real problems. And people down here take it for granted. Like they don't get it, but in many places, even with like great school systems, and I won't name and shame some other states like California, I won't shame them by naming them, but they'll be happy to take government money, but they won't want to, it's one way for them to contribute to national security or contribute in any way to the cause of government needs, which the government is the people, yet alone armed services or military. Like, it's just, they just want to take the money, it's one way. But here, it's such an amazing switch where it's fully collaborative. I mean, where I'm sitting here, obviously UCF does it better. Like, it's hard to beat. Like, here we've got down the street here, we've got 11 government offices there.
Yeah.
At Tech Grove, you've got, it's just the collaboration here is just unparalleled. But it is the anomaly. For the rest of the country, you won't find that. You rarely find that at other universities. And there may be one or two here or there, but it's not necessarily statewide like it is here. Like here, it's USF, UNF, I mean, all of them, and the great and amazing state schools that we have here that were just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, Valencia here, SVC, I've worked with Jax, I've worked with, Miami-Dade. I mean, they will rival some big state universities in other states. Not just because of the technical prowess, but again, their willingness to solve real problems. Whereas other universities, they just make up problems. And then they wonder why their graduates, when they graduate, kind of don't have any real skills because they've never worked against real problems. But here, your involvement with industry is so strong. And that's partly, a large tribute because of the work that you guys do. That's what you do, is you bring in the universities, you connect them with amazing, industry, you connect them with amazing university people we have here and our government partners and working together. And we think that's normal, but it's not.
Yeah.
But we do that so exceptionally well here in Florida. And wait, there's more. Like, why here in Florida? So we have amazing universities, amazing positive business climate. Like, we love businesses. We know that we want them to thrive because, it's not about the business. They hire people, and those people have kids, and those kids, go to school and get educated.
Yeah.
Those kids want to be safe in their community. So we want to be a business-friendly state. We have a lot of international connectivity. We love all of our consulates we have. We love our international partners that love to come here. And that's really, really unique about here. And we have so many veterans that want to come here because we are such a patriotic state.
Yeah.
I personally love that. I think that's amazing. I'm so thankful to all the brave men and women that give us the freedom so that they wear those suits so I can wear this silly one. And we thank them every day. We're so thankful here in the state that they want to come here when they're finished their serving and continue to serve. And they're a resource for us to further tap into. We don't even tap into barely enough. Like, we barely scratch the surface of that latent potential. And then, wait, there's more. So then you have all of these specialty sectors throughout the state. So you have amazing cyber over at USF and at Pensacola, and then you have amazing aviation over at Pensacola, and you have great medical facilities at UNF and down in Miami, and then we have a silicon sector that's starting to emerge and flourish in Kissimmee nearby here. So we have all of these amazing sectors. We have simulation, we have amazing schools, and remember what I said is that space is really a super sector of combining all of these together. So now you have all the ingredients. Now we can make an amazing cake.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's great, yeah. We like to end with this question. You've had such a diverse and accomplished career, moving through multiple industries and leadership roles. What advice would you offer someone who is considering going into a similar career path as you? In particular, what would you tell someone that you wish someone had told you when you were deciding your future career?
Okay. So, couple of things. So it's probably even worse than when I was going to school in terms of the race to over specialized and the competition at the high schools. I'm a high school dropout. Like, I dropped out of high school and just left. And I think it's hard to find time to buck that, to get off that treadmill. I think the problem is from high school, and again, there's a lot of places we can fix it before that. But I think part of the biggest problem is that because you don't really have much of a choice when you're in high school. Like, you're just, wherever you happen to live, like, you're in it. And that kind of, it's not like you can opt out of that. You don't have any choices. But after that, you do. I think that's where you actually have, when you have to get off that treadmill. Most people, unfortunately, they attempt to think of what their trajectory is, where they're going or not, even the middle school or high school, and they base it on what they think those careers are about, and those are even the careers they know about. So like most people don't actually know what a lawyer is. They say, watch TV, oh, where were you on the night of? And they're like stomping and banging on the. Most lawyers don't do that. Like almost no lawyer gets to court. As a matter of fact, in some ways you could look at those are the failures because remember we talked about deterrence. If you're a strong enough lawyer, nobody's going to go against you. They're going to make a deal.
Yeah.
In court. So in some ways, they're calling your bluff if they're willing to go into court because they think you're going to lose. Right? This is what I learned early, as I mentioned, when I was working on the Star Wars program. So the Star Wars program was so good. It was so amazing. It performed so well. We never even had to build it, and it had the desired effect. Right? Because the desired effect isn't to kill somebody or destroy something. It's to keep us safe or maintain freedom of us or our allies, right? That's the desire. That is the ultimate effect. And if you can do that without firing a shot, because you have systems that are so strong, no one wants to mess with you, then you win. But if you have systems you never even have to build, that's a super win, right? So we need, and the reason we don't do that anymore is we aren't thinking big enough. Like we're thinking really, really small. What are the really small changes we can make around the edges, right? Incremental changes, but no one has time for that because it takes nearly the same amount of time to do incremental changes as big changes. You can't even there's no way to overstate the effect that has by just returning that rocket back. So what that means is the cost of launch by reusing that rocket, it's again, not just the rocket launcher, but all the labor to build it and all the materials goes down 95%, 98%. Well, okay, so what? So launchers are cheaper. Well, that means when we were building satellites in the day, we built them one and done because you could only get that slot to go up in space because it was so expensive. Therefore, so few rockets and therefore so few launches, it had to be perfect the first time.
Yeah.
But now when it goes down and it costs 2% of what it used to cost. And now we can get rides all the time, which means you can iterate. And rapid iteration is the key to innovation. You have to be able to rapidly iterate to be able to innovate. Again, that's what modeling and simulation allows you to do because you can do multiple simulation runs in a model before you actually have to deploy. So that helps you perfect that innovation. But also you help me understand how to get out of the simulation we're living in, right? Out of the matrix. So my advice is that you have to look beyond the bubble, like not just outside the box, but think outside the bubble. And I would advise people to jump off the treadmill when you graduate high school and take some time to fully understand what those career paths are about and do some career exploration. And so, shameless plug, that's what I'm actually working on proposing to the White House is, in addition to create a Department of Space, a cabinet level Department of Space, which they kind of actually came close because they just consolidated the Office of Space Commerce. They gave them more power and they elevated it out from NOAA into a full agency soon of the Department of Commerce. So they're actually following my advice there. Actually, I said Department of Space or Department of Technology, DTech, at the cabinet level, because that's just as important as the other departments we have, right? We have Department of Ag, we have a department, even the Postal Service has its own agency, but space doesn't. Have its own independent agency. So that was one of my suggestions. But my other suggestion is to create a program where students in graduating can explore their careers. So sort of like the Peace Corps. And so I call it StarCorps. Where you can explore opportunities in space. And again, I'm not talking STEM, because the STEMers are going to be fine. Like they're going to find jobs, they're going to find careers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They have motivation, already being inspired by, but what about the other 95%, the 98% of all the other students that are saying, well, where do I do? What's my place in the society? How can I contribute? What are the jobs? How can I support my family, or how can I, be meaningful beyond? So we have all of those, and so space is a great motivator because for some genetic defect that we all have, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
Right? It's like among the most inspiring, right? I mean, there are some people that aspire to be in sports or, race cars, and that's cool, but you know what? There's not that many people that can do that. But who can be in the space industry? Who?
Everyone.
Oh my gosh. You're exactly right. The tables are turned. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, right? Like whether you're in aeronautics, or aviation, or math, or engineering, or communications, or art, or music, or interior design, or Prada. We have Prada that's doing the new spacesuits. So here we are. I'm gonna get goosebumps. It took us over 50 years to get back to space.
Yeah.
Was it because the STEMers weren't doing their job? Was it because we didn't have enough STEM? No. We had more STEM now in my phone than the entire space program had 50 years ago. It was because we didn't have the communicators. We didn't have the anthropologists, the agriculturists, the sociologists that showed how we can weave that story of inspiration, exploration, to inspire us to rise up and continue to improve and look outside of our cave to much detriment of being attacked by a saber-tooth tiger, but we still, for some reason, because we're here, we were willing to take that risk to look what's outside that cave, what's over that next hill, right? And that's why we have the world we do. And it shouldn't stop now. Like, space should be that next step of inspiration for everybody. And that's why I always say there's a place in space for every face.
I like that. Now, before we sign off, where should our listeners go to find out more about the World Innovation Network?
Well, that's easy. WIN, W-I-N, .ngo, because we're an NGO, a non-governmental organization, which is basically a international version of nonprofit. So we are also a nonprofit, but since we do so much work spreading this message of interconnectivity, of hyperconnectivity, of cross-pollination across sectors, that we do so much work at the UN, lots of work at the United Nations. And one of our biggest initiatives is to take the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, if you're all familiar with the ring of circles of education and clean water and all of that, is to show how space impacts every single one of them. How you need space and space technology and the data or the observation or the communication or the collaboration or the fortification that space provides to be able to turbocharge and accelerate all of those. And so that work for the United Nations, therefore I'm working with organizations there that we have observer status, permanent observer status, or temporary observer status in some cases to some of the bodies there. And then that's sort of meeting this kids where they are, because that's, a lot of people, that's very, very important to them. We want to show them how they can make a difference in those areas through space.
Yeah.
And ultimately then through simulation and modeling, because when we take all of those disparate systems of water and air and energy and our food supply and all that, like, we could never be able to figure out how they all interconnect. But you can, because that's where modeling and simulation comes into play. And we can really, really turbocharge by bringing our world together.
And with that, I would like to thank Robert for joining us here today. That is a wrap on this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Want to stay in the loop on what's happening in the modeling and simulation and Team Orlando communities? Head to teamorlando.org and follow us on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook for all the latest updates and upcoming events. If you're looking to spotlight your organization or share your voice on AIM on MS&T, sponsorship and guest opportunities are available. Contact us. The information will be in the description.
Don't forget to follow AIM on MS&T on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. I will talk to you all in the next one. Bye!